We've got ones that can see. Welcome, everybody, to today's show. The GOAT theme continues to surround Donald Trump. We talked about how Donald Trump's son, Don Jr., posted a picture of Donald Trump looking in a mirror and seeing a goat. And of course, our society has become so desensitized and conditioned into thinking that a GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time that they don't even recognize the fact that they're showing you Satanism in plain sight. The GOAT has always been a depiction of satanic worship. And now there is a Trump-themed GOAT statue at Maralago. That's right, a statue of a goat covered in money that has Donald Trump's picture on it. And of course, instead of it saying, "In God we trust," it's been changed to say, "In Trump we trust." So more blasphemy. Whether or not something like that bothers you personally, it shouldn't really play a factor in what we're seeing presented in front of us, right? Because, of course, just having "In God we trust" on money is kind of a bit of an oxymoron in itself. But the fact that Donald Trump once again has replaced God with his name is a common theme that we see. We see the MAGA fanatics put Donald Trump on the same pedestal as Jesus Christ, right? All the stuff we've talked about with, well, Trump's my president, Jesus is my savior. But just putting Donald Trump in the same sentence as Jesus Christ is blasphemous in itself. And this isn't the first time we've seen some weird behavior on display at Maralago, which I'll get into in the video. So let me explain what they're claiming this goat statue is. A Florida charity that specializes in creating and auctioning off 75-pound goat sculptures to raise money to combat, quote, child you-know-what trafficking, is making waves online for their Donald Trump-themed sculpture. GOAT, which stands for the Global Offense Against Trafficking, was founded by Rob and Debbie Canton of Tampa Bay, Florida in 2019 after they had saved several goats from slaughter and found additional inspiration when one of the rescued goats gave birth to a blind and deaf goat named Grady. So really this entire theme behind it makes no sense whatsoever. And again, we have another acronym for what GOAT stands for, right? This will get even more Christians and MAGA sheeple on board with probably putting their own goat statues in their own home, right? The Global Offense Against Trafficking is now what GOAT stands for, according to this specific statue. The sculpture, decorated with $100 bills with President Trump's face, is on display at the president's Palm Beach, Florida resort ahead of its auction on February 27th. The sculpture also bears the signature of the 45th and 47th president at the bottom. It goes on to say that not everybody was excited about this goat sculpture. Some Christians online criticized the sculpture for creating false idols. Quote, "I've certainly seen a few comments from individuals on social media expressing negative sentiments, but these have all seemed to come from individuals with an axe to grind and a history of being triggered by anything Donald Trump says or does," according to Rob Canton, who is the creator of the sculpture. The left-leaning patriot takes account, shared photos of the sculpture on social media and said, "At Mar-a-Lago, a bizarre golden hoof goat idol is on display. The idol is wrapped in Trump $100 bills that say, 'In Trump we trust,' replacing God with Trump. The idol base says, 'I love you,' along with Trump's signature." And that's really the common theme that we always see from MAGA. When you call them out on any of the stuff, you can go back to Operation Warp Speed. You can go to how fake and staged the assassination attempts look. You can go to some of the things where Donald Trump has openly even said, "I'm not a Christian, you're a Christian, I'm not a Christian." You can go to things like Donald Trump reading the snake poem. You could show them a pile of evidence as high as Mount Everest, and these people still say the same thing, like that person who created the sculpture just said, right? This is just people, individuals with an axe to grind, being triggered by anything that Donald Trump does. So they ignore the evidence in front of them. Now, of course, they completely ignore how a goat, literally the goat is the symbol of Satanism, right? The Satanic Temple uses the Baphomet as their logo. It's always been the depiction of Satanism, has always been a goat. And now all of a sudden we're seeing goat getting flipped into something bigger and better, right? It means you're the greatest of all time. So all these people can reveal themselves to us by showing themselves as a goat, by calling themselves the goat, and normalizing the goat to the fact where we have Christians wearing goat bracelets and goat necklaces and shirts with goats, and they don't even have the slightest clue that literally it's the equivalent of a Christian, right? Wearing a crucifix. Now, you can have your take on what the crucifix really means, because obviously the crucifix is associated with Wicca as well. But let's just say hypothetically, right? Okay, whatever your take is, let's just look at the crucifix as a symbol of Jesus Christ. Okay, well, the goat is just as equal of a symbol to Satanists, right? So would a Satanist be walking around with a crucifix on their shirt? Likely no. Maybe a crucifix that's upside down, which we've seen a lot of celebrities like Marilyn Manson and others do, or we see it throughout music videos where they always depict the cross upside down. But you wouldn't see a Satanist wearing anything pro-Jesus on their bodies. But of course, the Christians just think that the goat is just a new symbol. In fact, some of them just say, hey, we've taken over the goat. Not everything has to be evil, right? These are the types of excuses that they make for Donald Trump. So, as I mentioned earlier, Don Jr. posted that picture of Donald Trump looking in a mirror and seeing a goat, and everybody gave him a pass, right? Just very eerily similar to the picture that Elon Musk posted of himself looking in a mirror wearing the Baphomet costume that he wore for Halloween one year that also had the upside down cross right on his back in plain sight. And there's lots of connections with Donald Trump and the Baphomet. Again, I've talked about this in the previous video about Space Force, right? This charade of Space Force. Donald Trump's own store where he sells merchandise. He sells a Space Force hat and Space Force clothing. And look at the hat and flip it upside down. And what do you see? You can see that Baphomet logo right in there. They put that NASA space shuttle right in that spot. They deliberately put that star between the two horns because the Baphomet has the star between his two horns. And it's literally a mirrored image where you can see that, no, that's the Baphomet in plain sight. And these people continue to ignore it. Again, they've normalized GOAT. We hear things like Tom Brady, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. We hear all of these people, rappers, talking about the greatest of all time. Patrick Mahomes, is he going to be the NFL GOAT if he won the Super Bowl a couple of days ago? All these celebrities doing GOAT yoga, and nobody's saying, why in the world? What? What are they doing? They're putting goats on their back. Well, why are they doing that? Well, how is that beneficial? Nobody even asked that question, right? I mean, couldn't they put a weight on their back? Couldn't they put another animal? Why is it a goat? And who in the world would want a goat marching and stomping on their back? And of course, the celebrities are the ones who have done this. And as sheeple do, sheeple see, and then imitate these things, right? How many sheeple out there now have participated in doing goat yoga? And again, yoga's only been normalized because it's another thing that directly correlates with Aleister Crowley, who even used to sign his name, his signature as the Baphomet. So the other thing I wanted to point out about Maralago and how this is on display at Maralago is how a few months ago, and actually throughout 2024, that the Ark of the Covenant, this replica of the Ark of the Covenant, has been on display at Maralago. And all of these alt-right media shills who are invited to Maralago, who you see rub shoulders with Trump, who are government operatives, okay? They are not truthers. They are not awake. They tell you government-fed conspiracies, and then they feed it to you, and they play to your emotions by making common sense logic points, like talking about men are men and women are women. And they all posed in front of this Ark of the Covenant, right? They just stood in front of the Ark of the Covenant. And people are just like, is that the Ark of the Covenant, right? And then this same exact replica of the Ark of the Covenant made its way over to Israel and has been taken to Jewish temples in Israel. Why was this in Mar-a-Lago? Is anybody out there asking that question? Why would a Ark of the Covenant replica be inside of Mar-a-Lago? There are an awful lot of themes that we see with Donald Trump proclaiming himself in many senses as the chosen one. God anointed Donald Trump. God chose Donald Trump. Donald Trump taking his name and replacing God on the $100 bill and putting in Trump we trust. Having the Ark of the Covenant even in Mar-a-Lago. The themes are they're mind-boggling that people out there don't see the blasphemy that consistently occurs surrounding Donald Trump. And don't forget that golden Donald Trump statue that was getting dragged around America. Remember the golden calf, right? You have your golden Trump statue that MAGA supporters were going and taking pictures in front of. And they still don't think that this is idol worship. I mean, literally the story of the golden calf, and then you have this in the Bible, and you have this golden Trump statue, and they can't correlate the two with idol worship. It's insane. And not to forget that even after Donald Trump's fake assassination attempt, when Trump was depicted as having this golden ear, they showed his ear made in gold. The Trump campaign was putting out images of Trump with a golden ear. So this stuff is right in front of everybody's faces. And you could go back to the quote from the guy who made this goat statue, right? Hey, it seems like everybody's got a grind they got an axe to grind with Donald Trump. They're triggered by Trump. So they're criticizing this stuff. Says the guy who we're supposed to believe the backstory on this guy creating the goat was the one that I read to you earlier, that they had a goat, right? Oh boy, they rescued goats, and then they were so inspired by one of the goats that was blind and deaf, and they named it Grady, and then somehow they connected that with creating the Global Offense Against Trafficking Foundation, taking the acronym GOAT, and then telling people, hey, we're going to sell goats, 75-pound goat sculptures to raise money for children. I mean, the whole entire thing is obviously sketchy, but you would hope that the more you see stories like this, where there's goats depicted at Mar-a-Lago, when Donald Trump's son is putting up pictures of Donald Trump as a goat, and then people start saying, right, the goat, what is the goat correlated with? Well, it's correlated with Satanism, just like I said earlier with the crucifix. Take your viewpoint on the crucifix out of it. If you saw somebody with a crucifix on their neck, you would just assume naturally that they were a Christian, would you not? If you were out at a store somewhere and you saw somebody with a crucifix on, the first thing you would think is, well, that's probably a Christian. It's probably not a witch wearing a cross to deceive me. It's likely that it's a Christian. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't see celebrities wear crucifixes all the time. Some of the deceivers out there, like Madonna or Johnny Depp, right? We've seen them wear crucifixes, but for the most part, a regular civilian in society, okay, who is a Satanist, isn't gonna walk around with a shirt that says, something positive about Jesus that has a Bible verse. Let's use that as an example, right? You're not gonna see a Satanist wear a shirt that has John 3:16 on it, are you? Very unlikely. Again, you might see a celebrity do it to deceive you, but you're not gonna see the guy up the road who is into, all this satanic stuff, and he's got all this satanic paraphernalia on his car or whatever it might be. He's into Pride Month and everything else. You wouldn't see him wearing John 3:16, right? But suddenly now Christians are looking at the goat as if it's this cool thing because that's what they've done through social engineering. They've taken the symbol for Satanism, they've created an acronym, the greatest of all time, so that people start seeing the goat more and more, pictures of goats, pictures of humans as goats, pictures of Tom Brady with his head replaced as a goat. And then suddenly it just becomes normal in our society because they desensitize you to this imagery. And then what else starts to occur? Well, we have false idol worship going on, right? Where these people are idol worshiping Donald Trump so much so that he literally could have the Baphomet statue in Mar-a-Lago, right? He could have the one that the Satanists roll out all the time. If Donald Trump had that in Mar-a-Lago, these people would still make up an excuse and say, well, it's there because Donald Trump is going to dispose of it. Or it's there because, well, he's trolling them by having it at Mar-a-Lago because they hate him so much, right? They would just consistently do this. At this point, Donald Trump could come out, tell everybody that he's bringing in a digital ID, say it's going to be called the Mark of the Beast, and then say you're going to have a tattoo of 666 that's going to go on your hand or in your forehead, and these people still probably would think that it's some type of a joke and think that Donald Trump was trolling. So we have another bizarre thing going on at Mar-a-Lago where we see this goat depicted as a statue, right? Where they change it from "In God We Trust" to "In Trump We Trust." Just another connection to Donald Trump with blasphemy, with satanic idols like the goat. And at the same time, months ago, having that replica of the Ark of the Covenant there, nobody even asked, what is it doing there? Why is it there, right? Most of the comments I got on the video I did covering that, which again has long been removed along with the channel, was people saying that it wasn't even real. They were like, that was Photoshop. That was never actually there. And I proved that it was there. These were from their verified social media accounts of the alt-right media people, and others who passed through Mar-a-Lago took pictures of it, saying it was the coolest thing ever, that the Ark of the Covenant was at Mar-a-Lago. Nobody correlating the two with potentially the Antichrist here, and the fact that it was sitting in Mar-a-Lago, and all of the stuff that we see going on with Donald Trump baiting in Christians into this massive deception to bring about AI governance. So sure, it's another coincidence, right, folks? Everything's just a coincidence now. And if it's not a coincidence, don't worry. The MAGA sheeple will make up an excuse as to why there's a goat there, like tell you that it's to fight child you know what, right? As if, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? The money that's raised for the auction is going to go to what? Where? What is that? You know what I mean? Does anyone even ask those questions? Okay, say you make $10,000. Okay, what are you doing with it, right? Are you creating a police force to do what? To why? I mean, that makes no sense, right? We know that these kids are born into a lot of the trafficking. And on top of that, of course, we know that this is all going on underground. So we're getting an underground police force to go underground into their underground tunnels to find these kids. I mean, what's the money actually going to? Well, of course, they never give you a reason because nobody ever asks. Just like every time you check out at a store and they ask you if you want to round up or donate money, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, if I say no, that's, am I a bad person? Are they going to make me think, right? Nobody even goes, well, how do you even know where it's going to? Well, because it just gets laundered right back in. Unbelievable, folks. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.